Wasabi guys, welcome back to another Commander video. This time I would like to rank in order from least to greatest the Commander options from the Crimson Vow sets. So this is going to include the Crimson Vow Commander set, might as well. It's pretty much a package deal. You even have the cards that don't come in the actual precon decks. Now before I get into the rankings, first I would like to remind you that if you have not already, please do subscribe to the channel. Most of you who watch are not actually subscribed. It's a pretty common thing with YouTube, but it does really help us out when you subscribe. And also, if you want to support the channel, you can always become a channel member. I will have a link to that in the description below, and you should have an option to join right below the video as well. So depending on your thoughts on the first set, Midnight Hunt, Crimson Vow might be a bit disappointing. I don't think it quite offers as much support for an under-supported tribe. Big tribe, of course, for this set is Vampires. Vampires didn't really need a ton of support. Ever since 2017 in the Edgar Markov precon, they've been just fine. You do have some interesting brand new strategies that are going to be introduced, and that's what I'm going to be leaning on here towards the top. So in total, there are about 23 commander options, 25 if you want to be technical. We do have some partner commanders that you can play individually. However, most people are not going to do that. So starting it off here with the worst commander option, in my opinion, we have Hololena and Elena partners, not because they're bad, just because they're boring. They don't really inspire anything new. It's haste enabling and +1/+1 counters. That's pretty much it. It's not bad. It's a reliable ability. You know what it's going to do in a game. That's really the only thing it has going for it. Especially considering you go to the last set where we had a gruel-colored commander. It was actually pretty cool because it added something to a strategy that people were actually looking to play. And next here we have Hodrick Blood Cursed. Towards the bottom, and I don't think this is much of a surprise. It's not even so much because the card itself is awful. I don't think it's an awful card, but as a commander, you're going to have to really spread your strategy thin. Thinner than what I think the average person would want. Your deck's going to have to be keyword focused, and you're also going to need something to benefit from artifact tokens. That's not the easiest task in the world, not impossible, but you're probably in some of the worst colors to get that kind of payoff. If you were in black, you would not only have better ways of benefiting from artifact tokens being sacrificed, but you'd also be able to benefit off of the majority of payoffs in this set, which the majority of anything having to do with blood tokens in Crimson Vow is coming from black and red. So it's in the wrong colors. You're gonna have to really do some experimenting to get the most out of this commander, so not a ton of potential in my opinion. And then we have Old Rutstein, kind of like Hololena and Elena. It's not bad. Not a bad card, something you might include as one of the 99. And to be fair to Hodrick, I think just because a card isn't a great commander doesn't mean it's going to be a bad card in Commander. You just don't really get much more than slow value. We have a ton of other cards that can do self-mill more efficiently. And then after that we have Henrikha Damnafi that flips into Henrikha Infernal Seer. Again, not a bad card, just not really much here. You do have a few different modes. At first glance, it could appear like Rankle Master of Pranks, but they are one-sided until you get to the option where you get to flip her into Henrikha Infernal Seer, and then you almost get a keyword tribal card here that just gives a +1 power boost each time you pay that mana. Not awful, just not really much there to experiment with. I don't really see much potential in her. And then we have Geralt Visionary Stitcher. Again, I'm going to say this for a lot of cards here. Not bad in Commander, just not going to be the commander option. Giving zombies flying is always going to be cool, and you have a way of getting zombie tokens. But try building a mono blue zombie deck and see how that goes. It was a very difficult task back in 2014 when the first Geralt released, and this time around it's going to be maybe not as difficult, but very limiting. And then we have Edgar Charmed Groom. I love the flavor, love the concept of flipping into a coffin, flipping back into Edgar once he's done with his beauty sleep, but that's really it. You are getting some vampire tokens, but it's slow production, and then once you actually get Edgar out, he's just a vampire lord, so he's a lot better as one of the 99. And then we have Dorothea, Vengeful Victim, that flips into Dorothys Retribution. I like Disturb. I like it because it's simple enough to understand. If you understand Flashback, it's pretty much the same thing, but for creatures. And what's a little bit different this time around in Crimson Vow is that the Disturb cost will bring the creature back, but as an aura. So with Dorothys Retribution, you pretty much have Geist of Saint Traft, which, to no one's surprise, got a reprint in the precon decks this time around. But being able to play for 2 mana of 4/4, you get to deal that quick commander damage, that's not bad either. It has some potential as a blue-white aura commander. Maybe you have a sub-theme of spirits too. And then we have Taurin's Fist of the Angels. It might be a bit controversial, one of the more controversial opinions I have, but I don't like human tribal. I think it's a challenge, and I'm always up to the challenge of playing something, but every time we've received human tribal support, it never really seems to take the tribe anywhere. We're never really experimenting with anything new. It's always some variation of tokens and +1/+1 counters. That isn't to say that Taurens is a bad commander option. I think it's one of the safer ones. It's going to be pretty easy to synergize with. You have token doublers in both of these colors, and you also have great +1/+1 counter support. Big upside here is that the tokens also have the ability of getting more +1/+1 counters on themselves, so it's a lot less likely to fall victim to something like Elesh Norn late game. And then we have Runestrom Kirk that flips into Krothis, Lord of the Deep. If there's an award for something crazy, brand new, never done before, it's probably going to be with Runo. Yes, we've had Sea Creature Tribal before, but now you have it on a commander, and a commander that will give you some kind of payoff late game. Big downside of Sea Creature Tribal is that you're not in the best colors for ramp, and you're gonna need to get some value out of them. That's really the only thing holding this commander back. If it were more efficient, if there were any way of making this strategy a lot quicker, then it would be closer towards the top, but right now I think he's kind of safe here in the middle of the pack. And then after that we have Olivia Crimson Bride. Great card. I think she has a lot more potential as part of other decks, of course. Being a commander option though, if we're just talking about the ability, you get haste and flying, so you have decent evasion, it's a quick ability, and you have a way of bringing back your creatures. If you're playing Vampire Tribal, bring back legendary vampires, keep them out there. That's really the condition. As long as you have a legendary vampire, you're not going to get burned on this. Sort of a vampire Alesha, if you will. And then we have Donald, Herald of Wings. Flying Tribal has seen an increase in support here, going back to around Throne of Eldraine, and I really like Donald. I think Donald is pretty much a middle-of-the-pack commander option that does introduce something new. It does give you the ability of copying these creatures. The creatures aren't going to be as powerful, they're limited to 1/1s, but just getting copies of good non-legendary flyers, it gives you a direction to build in, and it's not something that we've done before, and that's always something I reward points to. Just creativity, great design. It's not going to be super overpowering, but I think it's going to be solid enough. You have a deck built around good creatures with evasion, and you're getting copies of these creatures, which means you have a ton of potential of getting value off of something like a Muldrifter. So instead of just drawing 2 cards, you get 4 cards. That's pretty sweet. And then we have Toxrill the Corrosive. Very interesting commander, but I think it has a similar issue to Runestrom Kirk. It's expensive, it has an activated ability, so you need to not only ramp into the commander itself, but you also need to consider the importance of playing a commander and using its ability in the same turn. So it gets some negative points for that, but outside of that, you have a very strong ability here. You can slowly just build up these counters on your opponent's creatures, making them smaller, making them easier to deal with. Any kind of board wipe and you reward yourself with a ton of slug tokens. If you are able to keep Toxrill out there, you also have a card draw engine. You can sacrifice these to draw cards. Any kind of ability on a commander that lets you draw cards is pretty cool. And then we have Jacob Hawkins Inspector that flips into Hawkins Insight. I'm going to make the comparison to Blue Braids because the ability is so similar. You do kind of get a freebie if you're able to flip into Hawkins Insight. Drawback is that it is going to cost you quite a bit of mana to do that. However, the one advantage to Hawkins Insight is that it's one-sided. So everything that you did before with Braids, you now get it here, but with this card, you don't have to offer that same upside to your opponents. So you get to keep playing your Eldrazi, you get to keep playing things like Omniscience that are really expensive, and playing those a lot sooner. We then have Katilda Donhart Martyr that flips into Katilda's Rising Dawn. The Spirit Tribal and Enchantment hybrid is going to be pretty strong now after Crimson Vow. One of the best cards in the whole set, Hallowed Haunting, is proof of that alone. Katilda's not an overly complicated commander, but it's going to offer you some kind of resiliency and mono white that you maybe didn't have before. This isn't just a typical Enchantress deck with white, you are also going to incorporate Spirit Tribal enchantments as well, which does give you that extra boost. Not only is it a hybrid Spirit Tribal and enchantment commander option, but it's also a hybrid Voltron one too. You get great keywords and you get more power and toughness. Might just be one of the more underrated ones going into the set. And then we have Timon and Rhoda. I love Timon, I really do. I love the idea of being able to tap an opponent's creature each combat, not just your own. It's a very under-the-radar kind of strategy where you're just messing around with tapping creatures in blue, but it is there. Being a partner commander with Rhoda means that you also have the muscle behind the strategy too. They're specifically designed to complement each other, and that's just one of the more recent design qualities that I love, going back to, I think, around Battle Bond. It's not just taking some random partners and seeing what they can do. You actually have 2 here that were made for each other. Next we have Timathar, Baron of Bats. This is such a cool commander option, and I have just so much fun going back and forth with people talking about vampires versus humans. This is why I think vampires are some of the best creatures, the best tribal options. You have the creativity. It's not just creature token support with some anthems or +1/+1 counters. You have resiliency, you have reanimation. There are a lot of vampires that steal creatures, turn them into vampires. And of course you have the Eminence ability off of Edgar Markov. They've been cool with a fraction of the support, and Timathar is here to prove again why that is. It's very flavorful, like with Edgar Charmed Groom. Elder vampires will enter a long rest. Some vampires transform into bats, and then back into vampires. And on top of that, you also get another ward ability, but this time instead of paying mana, they have to discard a card. Strength isn't always the goal, sometimes it's just cool abilities that are fun to build around. And then we have Ruth, Tormented Prophet. I think out of all the commanders here, Ruth probably has the most potential for competitive EDH. That being said, being a good competitive commander doesn't always make a commander a good commander overall. As far as potential to build around, you could mix it up a little bit. Maybe you're not trying to go off in one turn, maybe you're just trying to get value off of casting spells from exile. That would be better if she were in black and red instead of red and blue. I'm certain everyone who played Prosper would love that as well. But because she's in blue, you have the best color for card draw, which means that not only are you going to be doing this each time you draw a card, but you're also playing the color that will let you draw even more cards and keep your turn going indefinitely, or at least until you just win the game. And then we have Anji, Maid of Dishonor. I'll talk about blood tokens here. I personally am not the biggest fan of them. You do have to discard to draw, which if it were draw and then discard, it would be so much better. But that being said, if you can find the payoffs, I'm certain it's going to be fun to build around. And Anji, kind of like the Anji from 2019, you have something to do with drawing and discarding. Maybe it's to aid madness, but you do have a payoff here, combined with the added support to Vampire Tribal. So not only is she here to lend support to that new strategy with blood tokens, but you're also going to be leaning on what's already strong. May not seem like a lot, but if you can consistently activate her ability, you're draining life totals, you're gaining that life. Next we have Laureen and Camber. One of the better options if you're just looking to benefit off of blood tokens. This is probably the coolest way that you can do that. Camber makes it so easy to get the blood tokens in the first place, and once you have Laureen out there, you could pretty much just goad creatures at will. And being able to just do this for paying 2 mana, sacrificing a creature or an artifact, that's very easy. That's very easy to pull off. As I said, blood tokens, you need some kind of payoff because on their own, they're not that strong. This is one of the more fun ways that you can abuse them. And next we have Grapple Knock, the Omnivore. I love Grapple Knock because unlike with a Ruth, you know there's going to be a variety to how you build around them. It's not just go all out and try to play competitive. If you wanted to make more of a casual deck, maybe fooling around with changelings to get that mill, that could be something that you do. Of course, Grapple Knock does offer you a way of playing spells from exile. Self-mill does seem like a big thing going into Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow. Grapple Knock seems to be staying true to the self-mill strategies that we've seen so far, while adding a new unique twist of Frog Tribal. And then we have Strefan, Marrer Progenitor. No doubt that some of the best commanders are going to be coming from the pre-con decks. Strefan, I think, offers you the best payoff for the blood tokens. You get basically a Vampire Kalia ability if you're able to sacrifice those blood tokens. He does make it easier for you to get blood tokens, while not as easy as something like Camber. If you can make your opponents lose life, you get one for each opponent who lost that life. Kind of like with Olivia, but the whole purpose of the deck is going to be combat tricks cheating into play bigger vampires, which will pretty much free up your mana to play a lot of other spells. Vampire support was pretty strong in the set, and while blood tokens could have been a little bit better, I do think it does offer some strength to the tribe overall. And Strefan looks like a pretty cool Vampire Tribal option. And then the number 2 commander option, in my opinion, is Millicent, Restless Revenant. This commander is crazy. It's no secret werewolves gained a ton of support in these 2 Innistrad sets, but spirits are very underrated. And now you have a perfect spirit tribal commander. I think this is something people have been asking for a long time. We've had Geist of St. Traft, it just never really seemed like it was meant for the bigger games in Commander. But with Millicent, you have cost reduction for your spirits. And oh yeah, you have resiliency built in, because whenever your non-token spirits die, you get to replace them with spirits. You deal combat damage, you get more spirits. It doesn't need to be overly complicated, it just needed to be powerful. And I think you do have great power in casual commander here. Anytime a commander can make itself easier to get back out there, you know you're going to have a decent game. It's all about being able to cast your commander multiple times in the same game. And with Millicent, you have that strong support, you have this needed support for a rather weaker tribe going into these two sets. And then number 1, what I think is the best commander from Crimson Vow, the Crimson Vow main set and the precon set, Umbra's Fear Manifest. A lot of what I said is true about spirits, but one thing that I said that needed to happen going into Midnight Hunt even was that we needed to have either a brand new creature type or brand new tribal support that was never seen before. That's what we got with Umbra's Fear Manifest. You get this crazy amalgamation of horrors and nightmares combined with powerful mill. I mean, this isn't your grandfather's mill, this is exile. So you get around a lot of ways of defending against mill. Oh, in addition to that, you also get a power and toughness boost for each card your opponents have in exile. So you have potential here for a hybrid Voltron commander. The reason why I have Umbris up here is the reason why I like a lot of other commanders. But I think with Umbris, you're going to be building a brand new deck. It's not just a shell that you're throwing together and using Umbris as a new commander when you had something like Phoenix before for mill. No, with Umbris, you're actually experimenting with these creature types in a way that's never been done before. It also helps that in combination, it's not just a casual strategy, it's something that could potentially win you the game. It could be a great win con. So it ended up ticking a lot of the boxes for me that I don't think any other commander here did. So anyway, that's going to do it for this video, the rankings. Let me know what you think about them in the comment section below. What are some of your favorite? What are some of your least favorite? Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, share, and hit that notification bell. Commander Void here signing off. I will see you all next time.